Adam Carolla 15 years ago predicted that in 50 years, we'd all be chicks. 15 years later, has that prediction come true in record time? Today, the host of the Adam Carolla Show, Adam Carolla, and former NFL sideline reporter Michele Tafoya has an announcement. She's running for Senate from Minnesota. It is Will Cain Country at the Will Cain Country YouTube channel, the Will Cain Facebook page, the Fox News Facebook page, terrestrial radio, and always here at Spotify or on Apple. Tinfoil Pat, two-a-days Dan. Let's start today with a round of applause. So if Patrick and Dan can jump into the program, let's all get to our feet, if we might, and let's give a round of applause to Tinfoil Pat.
Wow. I don't know what we're clapping for, but sure.
I did
For as long as Patrick has been working on Will Cain Country, which at this point I believe is several years, having met in person for the first time in December, but having worked here for several years, he has been working on one particular booking. He's had a long list of people that he'd like to get on Will Cain Country, but there's been one lurking in the background. As big as a fan as Patrick is of Michael Malice, as big of a fan as Patrick is of Jeffrey Tucker, as big of a fan as he might be of Peter St. Onge, his white whale, his big get, his big booking has been the ever-elusive Adam Carolla. And today, Patrick has secured Adam Carolla on Will Cain Country. Well done, Tinfoil.
Thank you. It's been just an honor. 20 years of listening to him. I'm just incredibly amazed that this is coming together.
Well, he's listening to this right now as we speak.
Well, is he?
He is.
Well, I mean, we're giving flowers to Patrick. This has been his white whale. And mine as well. So before Adam thinks, wow, Will's producer really wanted Adam, but Will wasn't trying to get Adam, though. That's not true. It was definitely a team desire, but we have to give credit to an individual effort in Tinfoil Pat. So now let's welcome in the host of the Adam Carolla Show, Adam Carolla. What's up, Adam?
How are you? Thanks for that intro. Felt good.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably used to wonderful intros, but I don't know, man. I mean, you have been the big white whale of this program. You have been, my producer, Tinfoil Pat, has been listening to you. I know since the Man Show. I'm pretty sure from Loveline and probably the Adam Carolla Show on terrestrial radio.
Well, you know, it's a weird life because I watch your show on Fox quite often. And I sit there and I think, oh, this is great. And then if somebody tapped me on the shoulder and said, do you think Will Cain knows who you are? I would go, I don't know. I don't think so. Why would he know who I was? Like I go through life that way. So everything's always a pleasant surprise for me. And I don't call it low self-esteem. I just call it no self-esteem. But I think people think that's negative, but it's not really negative. I just don't think of myself. So I would never think that a person that I haven't had Thanksgiving dinner with would know me. But then, of course, mathematically, people are going to know you through work you've done in the past. So I'm always flattered, and it's a great way to start the day.
Well, listen, man, of course I know who you are. And I would have said that situation could have been reversed diametrically in the opposite direction. Does Adam Carolla know who I am? Wow, how fascinating to think now that you watch the Will Cain Show. Here we are, just a couple of D-bags stroking each other's egos on a broadcast. But no, it is kind of a cool thing to think, hey, so let's start with something you did quite a while ago. Your book, In 50 Years We'll All Be Chicks. Was that 2011 that you wrote that? It seems like about 2011.
Yeah, 10, probably 9, 10. I mean, you know, when you write a book, it's a year. You start writing it, and a year later it comes out. So it's kind of
right.
You know, there's the conception, and then there's the birth. You know, But yeah, it's been over 15 years, and the thing that's interesting about that, going back probably 16 years plus, actually, is when you write a book. I was tasked to write a comedy book. I wasn't tasked to write a book about society or about gender roles or women transforming into men or anything. It was just um, write a comedy book. You're a funny guy. You have a popular podcast. Here's some money. Write a comedy book, and then we'll sell that book and we'll make some money off of you. And at some point, when you're done writing the book, they start kicking around titles, and you start thinking about funny titles, turns of phrases, things that have your name incorporated into the title or something like that. And so you start with sort of the same basic stuff of all the comedy books you've read over the years and all the titles. And then at some point, after kicking around 20 different comedy titles, I just thought in 50 years we'll all be chicks. And I never thought of it as particularly funny, or I didn't think it was a turn of phrase. It didn't really mean anything to me. It's not something I'd said before or even thought about before, but somehow it dawned on me that this is where we're going as a nation, and that should be the name of the book. And so somehow I was picking up something on my radar that even I wasn't fully aware of, and that's why that book is called In 50 Years We'll All Be Chicks.
But if you had to do it over, would you not rename the book? Would you not rename it In 15 Years We'll All Be Chicks?
Yeah, we got there. We got there fast, and also the calculation I didn't really factor in is lots of dudes like your Tim Walz's and your Jacob Fry's and Gavin Newsoms and stuff became chicks, but many more women became dudes. I mean, we have women out on the streets fighting with ICE officers every single day, like getting out of cars and punching people with Trump stickers, bumper stickers. Like it was a crossover. Many women started acting like guys, and then an equal amount of men started acting like women. I mean, look at the leg crossing competition that's going on between Gavin Newsom and Barack Obama and Justin Trudeau. Those guys are crossing their legs. It's like some sort of competition to see who can go deeper with their nut crush.
I've seen Gavin. Listen, I feel like I live in a little bit of glass house, because sometimes I'll catch myself and I'm like, why is the armpit of your knee on top of the other knee? And I try to correct myself. But Gavin's gone all the way over to your point. Now he's got both feet touching the ground in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
And
yes.
I don't know how that's comfortable at all.
He had to hire a Pilates instructor and work with that person for over a year to get in that position. Now, what's going on? Like, on a more serious note, what are we talking about? He is signaling to the base. That's the base signal. And there's a right and a left version of that. Like, if you ever see a guy wearing a baseball cap with Oakley blades on top of the baseball cap, I know how that guy votes. He votes for Trump. And I like that guy, but I know how he votes. You know what I mean? And if he puts the Oakley blade sunglasses upside down for some reason, he's even further to the right. But when you see these guys do the deep leg cross, and they do it live in front of an audience more than they would do it one-on-one, like in a smaller podcast or more intimate situation. So when they get an audience, they make sure they signal to that audience who we are. Also, in Justin Trudeau's case, it exposes his colorful socks. So you also know who he is, because he likes festive socks. But yeah, now Trump sits with his legs as wide apart as he can, and then he creates a diamond with two hands, and he puts
his
it
hands?
right in front of the jewels, so it accentuates, draws focus to it. You can see pictures of him sitting with Obama. Obama's crossed up like he got in a moped accident. And Trump's got his knees spread out like they're angry at each other. And he's going, come on, everyone, focus on what's important.
I never thought about the diamond hands focusing your attention right there at the crown jewels. Okay, we've had this conversation. I like this. Didn't think we'd go here. I like the idea of fashion. We're talking about body posture, but the fashion coding left or right, and we've broken that down on this show. You're a Californian, or you at least live in California, and you have for a long time. So I honestly think, because I went to college in California, Adam, and I have a lot of buddies who are refugees from California now in Texas, and I kind of see them walking around Dallas, and I'm like, man, that might code masculine in California, but it's not coding well here. So like, and I'm guilty. Okay, the Vans in California, perfectly acceptable, I think, masculine footwear. In other parts of the country, it at least codes left. You're wearing Vans, you know how that guy votes.
Yeah. Well, okay. So you hit on a pet peeve of mine. Guys over 40 in Vans. Now, there's stratas of Vans, just like there's stratas of Oakley Blade. What direction? By the way, if it's facing backwards, you're not as far right as upside down, but you're further right if they're backwards than they are forward. But let's not get bogged down in Oakley Blades. The Vans have stratas as well. I hate an old dad, and you'd see him. LA is full of old dads, right? Because it's a lot of second family guys. It's a lot of guys that focused on their career, producers. They married a younger woman, blah, blah, blah. I'm an older dad, and I would see, I mean, I got 19-year-old twins, but, you know, when they were 9 and they'd be playing in basketball games, I was, 50, and I was an old dad, and you'd sit in the stands, and I'd be sitting with the old dads, and these are 53-year-old guys wearing Vans slip-ons. Now, Vans are never good on an adult heterosexual male, but the slip-on varieties especially bad, and then the worst is the black and white checker print on the slip-on on the old dad. That is the worst piece of messaging I've ever seen.
I have violated this rule.
Oh,
I violated.
not the
I have
black
violated.
and white. Oh no, sorry.
These are my dog walking.
Checker.
These are my
Red
dog
and white
walking
checker.
shoes. I think you just. I've got the gray and black slip on. This is my dog walking shoes, man. I don't want to tie them. I just slip in and go for the walk with the dog.
Well,
and I know you're right, but I keep doing it.
But they don't have
Or
a
hey,
checkered
dudes.
pattern, do they? Do they have a checkered
I want to
pattern?
move on from this part of the conversation.
You
I want to
should.
move on. Okay.
You should want to get away.
Okay, but here's another one that where I'm in the glass house because I want you to. Then we're going to move on to a more serious topic. Gavin is interesting. I think. Can I just also just throw some flowers at your feet, man? There are certain debates that sort of, in my mind, if it's really, really gratuitous for me to say you're in the Hall of Fame with this, but how about this? Exist in my personal mind, and I can remember Ben Shapiro versus Piers Morgan on CNN. It is always seared into my memory over gun control. Maybe me versus Stephen A. Smith one day on one of those first take debates. But you versus Gavin Newsom is there. It's in there. It will always be in there. It was an awesome debate. And it's because you have his number, man, in a way that very few people have his number, which leads me to think you kind of know how the guy ticks. And I think he's different than Trudeau. I think he's different than some of these other, certainly different than Tim Walz. He has, I don't know if self-awareness is the trait that he has, but he's at a more sophisticated level in everything that he's doing, where he does the leg cross thing, which is feminine and codes left. And then he wears Western shirts on a podcast. I wear Western shirts. I like a poncho shirt, with pearl snaps. And he does these little things where you're like, not a bad look, looks a little masculine. He does a mix. And I think what he's pulling off is a sophisticated version of PC Principal on South Park. Like he's kind of that guy, but less dumb.
Well, he's very skilled, and he's sort of savvy, and he does a little bit of a jujitsu. in the sense that he uses your own momentum when he's sparring with you. He doesn't try to be a brick wall. You know, if you listen to his interviews, he does a strange thing where he is basically CEO and CFO of a company. And then you come in and you go, this company is gushing money. We're not turning a profit and employees are quitting. And he goes, I know, I hate it too. I know. I originally was one of the ones who instructed this company not to gush money and to shed employees. And I'm just as upset about it. And then the person that's coming toward him goes, oh, you're upset about it? And it's like he acts as if he's not a part of it. So when things go south, he acts as if nobody here wants to fix this problem more than me. And I've been sounding the alarm and I'm just as concerned as you are. Then he circles back and starts saying, you know, California's the fourth largest economy. We lead the world in innovation and tech innovation stuff. So he brags. And then when someone raises their hand and goes, what about the homeless problem? He goes, nobody's more concerned about it than I am. I've been trying. I have to fight each city's legislation to try to get these things. And all of a sudden, it's like you're allying. And it's almost like you are saying, don't you hate this guy? And you're his best friend. And then he goes, I'm not his best friend. I hate him too. And then you get a little, people get confused then. And so you'll hear people sort of come up against him and then they take their foot off the accelerator because he does this weird sort of bullfighter move with you. He lets you just go past him. All the other politicians like the Kamala Harris or like Ilhan Omar never gives an inch. You know what I mean? Like, wasn't it sad that those Christian youth's airplane crashed into a mountain? No, wasn't sad. Good, they deserve it. You know, she never goes, I have Christian friends too. She doesn't do that. Ilhan Omar never takes a step back, never admits anything, and is always on the offense. And Trump's that way too. Newsom can be magnanimous. He can be a little self-deprecating. He can be a little shucksy, and he can be, I agree. I want to fix this too. And so he has this kind of bullfighter kind of way of debating. And then, of course, he comes across as affable and a little self-effacing. And then people go, oh, he's not a bad guy, not a bad guy, you know. But he's really a sociopath, and he has no thoughts in his head. His thought is, I want to be in power. And whatever that means, it'll be like, I want to be the commissioner of football. And if that means saying I'm a huge Steelers fan, I'll do it. And if it means saying I'm a huge Rams fan, I'll do it. And I'll do it in the same day. I don't care. I want to be the head.
So in that way, though, he's not unique. That's sort of the cookie cutter prototype of a power-seeking politician. So you describe him as a sociopath whose only end goal is the advancement of Gavin Newsom. And yet, and I think there is something very familiar about him in terms of, oh, yeah, that's a politician. I can totally see it. And yet, do you think this, Adam? I think he's very talented. That's not necessarily a compliment. It can be a compliment. Because you left out one thing that he does. You mentioned the bragging about California. He swims your head. He drowns your head in stats. And he did it to Ron DeSantis when they debated on Sean Hannity. And before you know it, you don't know what's true. Right.
Well, also, he does a thing that's interesting, which is he knows you don't have those types of stats about whatever subject we're on. Like, what I mean is California, you go, look, more people, anecdotally, I know tons of people that have left California and gone to Texas and Nashville and Florida. Okay, fine. Anecdotally, and whenever U-Haul comes out with its annual report, many more trucks have left and have come back in, and costs $5,000 to rent one out, and it costs $10 to rent one to get from Texas to California. So you look around, it's like homeless, you know. You don't have a stat on homeless. You just go, every time I look out my window, I see a homeless guy or a homeless encampment. Every time I get my car and drive along the freeway, I see homeless encampment. And then he goes, Homelessness was at 19.7 per 100,000 citizens when I came to office. It's now at 16.3. So I've got it down 31%. And then you go, I thought there was a lot of homeless. It's come down 33%, and you can't pull out your phone and start checking all his BS numbers, and then you go, all these major corporations year after year keep fleeing California, Tesla and Chevron and Toyota. I mean, California, Carroll Shelby came to California from Texas to build cars. Think about that concept.
Right.
He lived in Texas and he said, I went to Freedom to build sports cars, and he went to Venice Beach of all places. Could you imagine going to Venice Beach to build cars now? They would never let you near that place. But we used to have Toyota, we had Nissan, we had GM, Tesla was the last company. They all moved out. And you could say that. And then he'd say, GDP with new growth companies and Fortune 500 companies are up 31.1%. And that is an increase of 4.62% from the previous tax quarter. And you go, I thought everyone was leaving. That's all you got is what your eyes tell you. You know what I mean? So he does that. He bamboozles you, and he knows you don't have the stats on the tip of your tongue to refute what he's saying. Now, what he's saying is mostly a lie.
Yeah. Well, what's that saying? There's lies, damn lies, and stats or something like that. You can rattle off a stat to support any lie. What are you still doing in California?
It's a good question. I have a business here. I have buildings here. I grew up here. I'm not a person that, grew up in New Jersey and came out here to pursue comedy. I grew up in Southern California. I have less and less sort of roots and connections here as the kids get older and go off to college and people pass on and move out and stuff like that. So I am planning my escape. But that's a very good question, and I wish I had a better answer.
What's the escape hatch? Is it Texas?
Well, ultimately, it'll be Texas. I think it'll be Nevada, Vegas for a little while because it's so easy to get back and forth to California. And I do have lots of material things here and obligations and things of that nature. So it'll be a little back and forth for the first couple of years. And then, somewhere like Texas.
Oh, wow. Hey, I want to ask you something. We're kind of talking about your personal stuff here just a little bit. I saw you do something, Adam. I don't remember who you did this with. It could have been Megyn Kelly. You could have been on a panel. I saw the video. And your relationship with Jimmy Kimmel came up. You were asked about it. And you gave this answer. And again, I'm not a big gratuitous compliment guy. That's going to seem false because now I think I'm on my third big compliment to you. But I really, really liked your answer. And I think that it was, in my mind, really in line with what certainly my principles, and I'd like to think what I think are principles that are manly. You said something like, yeah, Jimmy and I disagree on a lot, but Jimmy did a lot for my career. And not only do I not forget that, there's something, can't remember the words you used, but something extremely unattractive or gross about somebody that forgets people that help them get where they are in their life. And by the way, here's my personal, I kind of feel that way about Stephen A. Smith. But Stephen A. and I are friends, and we disagree, and we have a lot of, conversations. But he also advanced me, and I'm not going to forget that. And I appreciate the positions he put me in. And you clearly feel that way about Jimmy. The thing that I wanted to ask you about is if the thing that we all have experienced in our lives is it doesn't feel one-sided, where people who have values or believe the way you believe have trouble maintaining relationships with people who disagree with them. But the other way does seem to have trouble because they import all this moral indictment on your beliefs. And I'm curious if that hasn't affected or been a part of your... I get how you feel about Jimmy. Is he capable of feeling the same way about you despite your disagreements?
Yeah, he is. And I I've just talked to him the other day at Nice Talk. Yes. So the answer is yes, but it's because Jimmy knows who I am on a very deep and intimate level, which is to say that if you don't, then you just sort of know somebody on a superficial level or not at all. Then you go, okay, well, Trump is Hitlerian and he's trying to take over this country so he can put everyone who disagrees with him in a gulag, and then you support that person. But I don't think it would be any different than so Trump is called Hitler.
Right.
Even if you supported the actual Hitler, and this would be pre whatever Hitler plans went into action, any final solutions or anything. I mean, what I'm saying is Trump gets compared to Hitler. So let's just say Hitler, and we'll go back to Germany, and it'll be like 1938 and a half or something like that.
I got you.
If somebody supported him and you didn't know that person, you'd go, I hate that person, and I'll never talk to that person. But if somebody supported him who you knew well and was a decent person and a good person and a kind person and a family-oriented person, you would have won. All right, we have disagreements about Hitler. I don't think he's going to be good for the country. You obviously do, but you wouldn't cut the person off because he supported somebody you disagreed with if you knew that person was a good person. So everybody else,
Right.
the ladies from The View don't know me, so they think I'm horrible because they think I'm supporting Hitler 2.0. But Jimmy knows me and he knows I'm not horrible. So he, I would assume, thinks I'm misguided. But my mom supported Gavin Newsom, and I thought she was misguided, but I didn't think she was an evil person. But your point that it's not really a two-way street is correct. And the reason it's not a two-way street is you guys support Kamala Harris or Joe Biden, two likable, feckless, sort of dumbos, but they're not Hitler. So I can't really hate you for supporting someone who's bad. But if Trump is Hitler, then the other side supports Hitler. So of course you have to shun the people that support Hitler. You are basically supporting someone who is bumbling and bad at their job. I'm supporting someone who's Hitler and hates all people of color, according to you. So it's easy then to shun.
And that's rolling, by the way. That's not singular. Trump has been the most extreme version of it. We heard that about George W. Bush. I mean, he was compared to Hitler. And I can already hear it ramping up with J.D. Vance.
Oh, listen, Mitt Romney, they tried it on. You know what I mean? I mean, they'll try it on.
Yeah.
They'll try it on anybody. It doesn't matter. Anybody who comes along is going to be xenophobic and racist and scared of people who look different than them and whatever it is, whatever nonsense they say. And it's sort of sad and it's a little pathetic that we're in 2026 and we're just having these race arguments over and over and over, like all these years past Obama. I mean, I'm old. I remember the 90s. We didn't even talk about this stuff. Now we're like 30 years on and we're still having these race discussions. Right. And it's because they benefit from it. It keeps them alive. And it's kind of interesting because I was just thinking about Pam Grier on The View. Every white American is having some sort of competition to prove who was poor growing up, right? Oh, we didn't have anything. We were very lower middle class. Didn't your dad run Nabisco? Well, for 11 years, but then we were very lower. All the white people are trying to pretend like they grew up poor. I had to sleep in my car. It's all poor. Every white celebrity is poor. And then every black celebrity has to give us some example of being racially discriminated against. So they're not doing the poor thing. They do the victim of racism, and white people do the poor thing. But either way, we're all victims because people have found that there's currency in victimhood.
For anybody that doesn't know what he's talking about, Pam Grier, the actress, was on The View. She tells a story of remembering her mother taking her to lynchings in Ohio, and her mother, very vivid description, telling her to look away, look away. Well, Pam Grier was born.
To be fair to Pam Grier's mom, she wasn't taking her to lynchings. She was trying to walk home from school with her. And you know what it's like. You can't make it through the 50s without hitting bodies swinging from trees left and right.
In Ohio. Right. And by the way, everybody's like, the last lynching in Ohio was in 1910, I think, 1911. And somebody did the research, like 40 years after Pam Grier was born. So the story has just total impossibility. Okay, you brought up you want to be commissioner in the NFL. This is a couple interesting things here. First, did you see the stats, Adam? Have you seen the thing about voter registration in the various sports leagues? I just saw it last night for the first time.
I hadn't seen it.
Okay, you'll dig this. Okay. Well, it did WNBA, NBA, NFL, NHL, Major League Baseball. I'll give you...
all right, I'll rank them.
I'll give you one guess. Okay, rank them from most liberal to most conservative.
Right. So the WNBA is going to be like ranking Harvard faculty in terms of how they vote, right? I mean, that's going to be 96.3, whatever. All right, so WNBA, that'll be into the 90s with the liberal Democrat voting. The NBA will, I think, probably be in the low 80s, mid low 80s, maybe high 70s in terms of Republican. Then we're going to have to put MLB. MLB will be closer to 50-50, but probably 62% Democrat. And then hockey will go red, I say, with a flip on the MLB, more like 65, 67% Republican and hockey versus 40% Democrat.
Okay, the only one you left out was the NFL. So you basically got the rankings
the
pretty
NFL
close.
will be the NFL. Hold on, I gotta factor in long snappers and place kickers. Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna say the NFL will be in the mid 70s, mid high 70s, with Democrat versus Republican. But here's the thing that's kind of interesting. You go, well, the black vote is going to Democrats, but
Democrat, right?
But the NFL is a little bit different in that there's so much sacrifice and so much teamwork. It's almost like the military. And in that sense, I think you'll have more black players doing Republican voting because of the structure of it. But so I'm going to go WNBA.
Before I reveal.
Yes. WNBA, NBA, NFL, MLB, hockey.
Okay, I'm going to reveal the results to you in just a moment. But you said something interesting. I just saw this video of Chuck Klosterman, the writer, with the We the Fifth guys, the libertarian podcast guys, Matt Welch, and so forth. And he was saying something that I've talked about and you just alluded to as well. Here's how he said it, and then here's how I've said it. He said the NFL's popularity is really interesting in that it is the most fascist sport. Okay, if everybody can turn off the emotional reaction to the word fascist, he's talking about it's literally you have a job, execute your job. It's very structured. You fit into the system. You are more interchangeable than in other sports. And your instructions literally come down from on high, from the box, from the offensive coordinator to the quarterback. And in that way, it's different than the NBA, which is more like jazz. And he was making the argument sports needs rules, but we like to see people execute agency, and you could argue even artistry, within the rules. But football is the least of those, and yet it's the most popular. What I often describe it as is the way it's the most militaristic. It's do your job, it's top-down hierarchy, and other sports are more free form. And I just thought that was kind of interesting for him to describe that and say, and kind of ponder aloud, isn't that interesting that the most popular sport we have is the one of least agency, least innovation, individually, and I guess most fascist.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Here it is, Adam. WNBA. I'm just going to give you the Republican percentage of each league because they also factor in independents. WNBA is about 3% Republican. NBA is 10% Republican. NFL, 20% Republican. NHL, 44% Republican. And Major League Baseball, just under 54% Republican. So Major League Baseball and NBA or NHL, far and away the least liberal, most conservative. Now, I did see a separate chart, Adam, to your joke. It broke it down by position in the NFL. And far and away the most conservative Republican were place kickers and punters.
Oh, yeah.
And then you go down quarterbacks and keep going down offensive line, then defensive line, then linebackers, then running backs, then defensive backs. And somebody's like, okay, why don't you just tell us it's black versus white?
Right. Yeah. No, that is about what it is. I was surprised that Major League Baseball was above hockey or had more Republicans in it than hockey, but maybe that's an influence of lots of like Cubans and Venezuelans and that people of that ilk, because they have lots of diversity and a lot of their people are from places that have experienced these democratic, socialist, whatever, and they've got the hell out of there.
Versus hockey players, where you're going to have a disproportionate percentage from Canada. Although I think
Canada.
most of those Canadians from the middle of Canada are kind of conservative, but you've also got Scandinavians in hockey, and these guys might lean left.
No, you're right. I forgot about Canada.
All right, I want to take this before we go back where we started. I want to go back to in the 50 years where all be chicks. In the last couple of days, people have kind of pioneered or popularized this term awful, affluent, white, liberal females or female liberals. It is interesting how you talk about the women acting more manly and the men acting more feminine. But what sticks out to me right now is, I think my producer used this term. You may have used it in your book, but the cultural clergy. It's like the liberal white woman has become the arbiter of what is popularly acceptable in our culture. And Don Lemon, when he does what he does, he's not trying to appeal to me. He's not trying to appeal to you. He is doing content, even though he's a man, for that woman, for that white liberal woman or the black liberal woman. And it sort of exists, I think, in my mind, as the highest of social credibility, that if you can target that audience and that audience's rise in defining what is appropriate, how to behave, how to talk, has made us, if not all become chicks, made that cohort the top of the pyramid in America.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've done a lot of damage to women because we are essentially taking them away from what they do biologically and sort of forcing them to go against what their biological imperatives are by telling them, they don't need a man and they don't need kids and they need to work and they don't need to stay at home and raise kids. And it's essentially, it's sort of like this. If you take a swordfish and you see a swordfish like a marlin in the open sea, it's majestic how they just cut through the ocean. They go 40 miles an hour and they were built for speed in the ocean, right? But the second you lift one 6 inches out of the ocean and just set them on a plank, they flail. Like they don't operate in this environment. They're great in their environment, but they don't operate on a dock. And on a dock, they're completely useless and they flail. And women have a biological mandate, and we convinced them that was all wrong, and we pulled them out of that, and we put them in the corporate world, and we told them they don't need kids and they don't need husbands, and they need a man like a fish needs a bike. And lo and behold, they're miserable now, but they don't really know where to direct their misery. Their misery should be directed at the movement that got them in the place they're at currently, but they don't know how to do it. And they've been told men were bad and the cause of all their problems their whole life. So all they can do is lash out against men. Most of them hate their dad. Trump has become a father figure in place of their actual dad. Women do that all the time. They have issues with their dad, and lo and behold, they have issues with males later on. So the woman that has an issue with her dad is going to have an issue with her male supervisor at work because she's going to graft the feeling she has for her dad onto this guy. And the guy's not going to know what's going on because he's going to be like, what's all the energy? Like, where's all this coming from? I'm your supervisor. I've only known you for 3 weeks. Why are you crying? So they've taken all that and they've taken it to the streets and they're pushing against ICE officers. But the movement is what screwed them up. And in many ways, we did the same thing with Black Americans. We told them, stay home, have kids, we'll get you paid, we'll bring the money in. America hates you. There's societal racism. There's systemic racism. Nobody wants you here. So don't even try. Well, 50 years has gone by and it has hurt that community. This helping has hurt that community. And it did the same thing with these women. We hurt them by explaining to them they should not fall prey to their biological mandate. And they're angry and they're miserable and they don't know where to direct it. So they're directing it toward male authority figures.
And right now, I saw the videos this morning. ICE officers, as you point out, in Minneapolis. Well, this has been fun, Adam. I've loved hanging out with you. I am a fan. Not only do I know who you are, I am a fan, and I encourage everyone to listen to the Adam Carolla podcast. Thanks, man. I appreciate all the time you gave us today.
Thanks, Will. Appreciate it.
Okay, we'll see you soon. There goes Adam Carolla. By the way, you guys have chimed in as well, so let's get on over here to the Willisha. Man, okay, he really got me on the Van slip-ons. I know it. I know. You know when you're... Don't you laugh too hard two-a-days. I know what you do. I know what you do.
I'm almost
Be
40.
careful. You know, like, let's say you're at a wedding, and you go on the dance floor. I'm not a big dancer, right? And you start doing a few moves. You know when you've done a move that you hope's not on video, right? You know when you're like, oh, that was pretty feminine. I know when I'm putting on my... I know when I'm putting on my Vans that I hope nobody sees me. Yeah, I do know that.
Do you think your neighbors judge you?
Jim Art. I don't know. I got 2 Dobermans. Does that help?
Sounds like you're making up
that I'm walking
for your insecurity about the Vans. No, I'm kidding.
So I get the Dobermans. By the way, they flank me. No leash, heel, one on each side. I mean, I look like an authoritarian figure
What are you in
walking
the
with
mafia?
my
Jeez.
2 Dobermans flanking left and right in my Vans. Jim Darden says, Skechers slip-ons will. Hey, by the way, do Hey Dudes code right? Do they code Republicans?
They code
Hey
Florida,
Dudes?
so yes.
Dudes, and they're all.
I don't think they're
right.
just Florida anymore.
They used to be.
You're a Hey Dude guy, right, Patrick? You're definitely a
Yes.
Hey Dude guy.
They're a post golf
fast
round slip-on shoe now, I think. So I guess they code right.
I think they're a bad look. I'm just going to tell you right now.
Wow, called
So
out.
I think Crocs are too.
Called out, Patrick.
Crocs
I was
are
not.
bad.
I was not a huge Hey Dude fan, but then it's like, you know, it's like I just have fat feet. Nobody really makes wide shoes. It's kind of
Made for the wide-footed.
yeah.
American Nightmare says, I wear Vans slip-ons to work because they're slip-resistant. I'm going to tell you something. There's a lot of slip-resistant shoes out there.
Yeah, Skechers, one of them.
There's a lot on this Vans thing. Big Jep OKC says, Vans are cool in Oklahoma. Libs don't own that style. I had Vans for over 50 years. Disagree with Adam here. Oh, I got some support. ZZ the Boxing Cat says on YouTube, Gav is a big code switcher. That's exactly right. He's a big code switcher.
Yeah.
Him talking to Charlie Kirk, who'd he just do one with? Ben Shapiro? Him talking to Ben Shapiro is totally different than him talking, at Davos, saying European leaders should get knee pads. Renee Romine says, love Adam Carolla. He is so funny and spot on with his views. So glad you finally got him to join Will Cain Country. And then we head over to Facebook. David LaFountain says, Adam, when you were working with your buddy on the Man Show, was he a dick then?
I was hoping you would ask him.
I should have read that out loud. Well, we did. Is he talking about Kimmel there?
Yes.
Well, I did ask him about Kimmel.
I know. Not in that way, though.
To be fair, I mean, Kimmel's been a prankster. There are some really good elements to him, but like a lot of people are like, some of his pranks go a little far. So
No, you don't say.
yeah.
Well, I don't care about his pranks. Who cares about his pranks?
No.
He's just got TDS.
He's got that.
He's just got TDS.
Yeah.
Take penicillin for that, I think. Oh, no. Wrong thing.
Are we ready for this, Patrick? Dan?
We're ready
are we
for
ready?
this. We are.
I'm gonna
So
tee
you
it
can
up.
read it out. Yep.
Let's do it. Palmer Rick says on Facebook, we need more conservatives to stand up and volunteer to serve our country. I congratulate Michele Tafoya for her courage and sacrifice. It's not an easy task these days. And that means now, perfect introduction for former NFL sideline reporter, Michele Tafoya. Michele, what's up?
Hi, Will. This has been very entertaining sitting here listening to you and Carolla and all the Vans comments. I do not own a pair of Vans. I don't think anyone in my family right now owns Vans.
Well, you're Minnesota. I mean,
Well,
you're probably
there's really
wearing
no
something
season.
very furry and bulky, right? Something to
I
keep
have
your
a
feet
ton of
warm.
Uggs, I can say that.
See, now I thought the Uggs was a house slipper. Okay, now here's the deal. My boys play soccer. It's a winter season in Texas,
Right.
and it's been cold, and I don't have the footwear, so I've been wearing cowboy boots, and my toes are frozen at the end of a soccer game, even with wool socks. So now, Michele, and my wife is like, I'm wearing Uggs. I don't know. I'm like, do you wear those outside the house? So I've had to consider what is my freezing cold footwear, and now I'm wearing like my hunting boots, like just muck boots is what I wear.
And how's
hunting,
that
big
working
rubber
out?
boots, and they're nice and toasty. Great,
You know
nice
what?
and toasty.
I can't tell you how many times I've had to adjust footwear for the NFL sidelines. From Chicago Soldier Field in December to Green Bay to Foxborough. I'm telling you, there's nothing worse than cold feet. And the best solution is those, they fit inside of your shoe. It's a full sole length foot heater. Don't get the little toe heaters. Those are counterproductive.
Yes.
Get the whole full sole thing, put it in your boots, have an extra pair in your pocket because they might run out, but they usually last a good 8 hours. So those are lifesavers.
I bet those sidelines were. I mean, looking at Chicago this past weekend, it looked miserable. I bet those sidelines standing there.
Kansas City can
you're
get
a
bad
popsicle.
too. Yeah, and then you end up talking like that, you're trying to deliver a report and you can't move your face, and yeah, it's something.
Yeah. Okay, but the job you're applying for now
Yeah.
will keep you indoors, Michele. And you have filed the paperwork. The news is out there, but would you please announce it for us here today on Will Cain Country?
Will, I am throwing in my hat. It's not a 10-gallon cowboy hat. I don't even know what kind of hat it is. Into the ring for United States Senate to represent Minnesota.
Oh, that's incredible. That is awesome news.
Thank you. I'm glad you think so.
Which primary? Which primary?
Are you kidding me? I'm on the Republican side.
There we go.
I'll let Peggy Flanagan and Angie Craig, fight it out on the other side.
Let's talk about the process, Michele. I'm curious about the process, both personally and professionally. So that's a big decision. As our commenter said, we need more people with courage and sacrifice, and it's not an easy task these days, as is written by Palmer Rick, or Rick Palmer if it's in reverse. So let's just talk about the personal side first, especially in today's environment. Especially in Minnesota, this is quite a personal choice. So what went into this idea that I think this is something I might want to do? And by the way, I would add on, the willingness to move to Washington, D.C. for 6 years should you win.
Yeah. You know, well, most people travel back and forth. I'm sure I'll maintain a residence here. But here's the thing. This has been building in my mind for years and years. And it really started, 9/11 was sort of my big political awakening, Will. I love this country so much. And my dad, who's a son of immigrants, was a son, sorry, Daddy, rest in peace, was a son of legal immigrants, told me I had won the lottery just by being born here. And I believe him. And I saw that threatened. And, you know, cut to now, years later, the reason I left a great job on Sunday Night Football was to be more involved, to be able to speak my mind, to be able to get into the conversation about this. And so the more I've gotten into the conversation, the more I've learned, the more I've seen, the more I've experienced, the more I've thought, yes, what your Palmer Rick or Rick Palmer said, hi, Rick, or Palmer, we do need people of integrity to say, we can't just keep rolling over and letting the career politicians run this thing. They're running it into the ground, particularly here in Minnesota under Tim Walz and others. So this is a crisis of leadership. And, you know, I want to bring some common sense to a place that we have kind of turned over to craziness and corruption. And that's why I'm running.
And that state, to your point, and the leadership from that state is a lesson in failed leadership.
Yes.
How much have the current events in Minnesota, I'm sure you've been considering this longer than Minnesota has been in the national spotlight, first with fraud, then with ICE. But how much have these events played into your decision?
Well, I certainly think they moved the momentum in the right direction for this decision. The fraud, everyone in Minnesota, I don't care if you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, everyone's sick to their stomach that they were built of billions of dollars that was supposed to go to children and went to criminals instead so they could buy, you know, lakefront homes and BMWs and Rolex watches. That makes all of us sick. Now, you know, you have Tim Walz having to step down from the gubernatorial race because he knows he's too connected to that, as is one of the Democrat nominees or, you know, candidates, I should say, in my race, Peggy Flanagan, his lieutenant governor. We can call it, people have been calling it the Flanagan fraud. So that's irritating people. And now you see this breakdown in law and order in the streets of Minnesota. And that has been fanned by Tim Walz, by Keith Ellison, by Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry. Sadly, these names are becoming household names for all the wrong reasons. But they have fanned these flames and they have created an environment where people think, oh my gosh, I have to go resist. I can't just peacefully protest. I've got to put my body, my car, you know, I've got to spit, throw rocks, throw frozen water bottles. This is what I have to do in order to stop this. I've talked to law enforcement, Will, and they have said, look, we wish we could be helping. They're not allowed to, local law enforcement. They're not allowed to help in these operations. And so these things have turned ugly. And what happened to Renee Good is heartbreaking. And it's awful. And I send my heart out to her family and everyone who loved her, because that didn't have to happen. It shouldn't have happened. But again, we're in this unsafe environment that was brought on by Tim Walz and his far left friends.
It's interesting you've talked to local law enforcement. I've wondered the view from inside the Minneapolis Police Department, the view from inside the St. Paul Police Department.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that really stood out that I talked to one of the officers about was he said, you know, we go and we risk life and limb to bring a criminal into detention. If it's an illegal alien, they get released. And then you've got to have another officer go risk life and limb a second time to bring that same person, to detain that same person. It's inefficient. It's dangerous. You're doubling the odds of someone getting hurt. So I think that there's a lot of frustration within the rank and file of not only the Minneapolis police, but St. Paul as well.
Okay, so here's the competition right now. Michele is announcing her run, file the paperwork for Senate from the state of Minnesota. On the Republican side, we know of, at least I know of right now, you may know more, obviously you will, Michele. You have Royce White, who's running as a Republican. On the Democrat, you have Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, which you just referenced, and Representative Angie Craig. Yes. On the professional consideration side, the there's always politics behind the scenes. You know, political players in a state talking to different people. We think you could win. We want to get behind you. We can put the apparatus behind you. Have you had those conversations? How has that gone? And I'm going to ask you sort of a double-barreled question here, because I asked you about the police, but I think the nation has a legitimate question about the people as well of Minnesota, who could keep electing Tim Walz, you know, and these types of politicians. So are the people of Minnesota really ready to think about a Republican at the state level?
Well, I'll start with that one first, and then you're going to have to remind me of the first question. I think people see Minnesota at a tipping point. I talk to a lot of people around, not only in the Twin Cities, but outstate, who say, you know, look, we're fourth and fifth generation Minnesotans. We love this place. We believe in Minnesota. We don't want to leave. A lot of people have left, Will. A lot of people have left. And I think a lot of folks here in Minnesota are saying, you know what, we're tired of rolling over to these liberal Democrats, to these liberal elites that think they know what they're doing. And they're finally seeing, I think, in a crystal clear way, the damage that Tim Walz and company have done. So I think there's a readiness. I'm getting unbelievable support. I was recruited hard by a lot of different people to do this. This is not easy for me, Will. This is not going to be easy, but it is a mission. And it is something that I want to do because, like I said, I love the country and I love Minnesota. And I hate seeing these career politicians turn us into decline. So that's the answer there. I do think that Minnesotans are willing to listen to a common sense conservative.
I think you answered both questions there as well, because the first part was about that recruiting apparatus, that political apparatus in Minnesota. And, you know, you're an outsider, not unlike a lot of successful politicians, by the way. And it's interesting to convince the political establishment, even the Republican Party of the state of Minnesota, to get behind, if they do, an outsider. So often outsiders, as is evidenced most obviously by President Donald Trump, first they have to win the internal battle. Then they can get to the battle for the state and the minds of the people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it is true. The internal battle is real. And by the way, if people want to help, because we are going to need it. You know, when you're fighting the Democrat apparatus, you're fighting against a ton of money and a ton of influence. So MicheleTafoya.com, shameless plug. Go help us chip in anything that you can if you want to volunteer. So yeah, this is an uphill climb. But again, I think conservatives here, and there are a lot of them, Will. There are a lot of them. President Trump got the most votes of any Republican presidential candidate in Minnesota history. So if all of those people were to come out in this midterm, we could turn Minnesota around. And I want to remind people of that. So if you know anyone in Minnesota, if you are in Minnesota, remember that. It is going to be a turnout election. Everyone says that, yada, yada. But this is true. So there are a lot of us here. I think people are tired of losing. And so maybe they're going to be willing to open their hearts and their minds to someone like me.
All right. MicheleTafoya.com. Good politician always has to get that in, and you got it in. That was a test. Trust me, I've been doing this a long time. Got to remember to get that in to the conversation. Michele, thank you for spending some time with us here today, making this announcement.
Thank you. Good to see you.
We wish you the best of luck. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and stay in touch throughout this race. There we go. There's Michele Tafoya. And by the way, Michelle Benson on Facebook says, from one Michelle to another, Michelle, I'm going to be behind Michelle from Minnesota Senate. There you go. People listening and already getting in on Michele Tafoya. All right, that was a fun show. Long conversation with Adam Carolla. Good conversation with Michele Tafoya. We appreciate you hanging out with us here today, as you can every day, Monday through Thursday at 12 o'clock Eastern Time. Just remember to follow us on Spotify or Apple. We'll see you again next time.